Hey, well, good morning still, and welcome everyone. And I know we probably will be getting more people, but we'd like to get started because we're trying to accomplish a lot during the period of time, and we don't want to be the last thing between you and lunch. On the other hand, we think we have such a compelling set of perspectives to share with you that you may want to be late for lunch, but we'll try not to keep you too late. So today, we have a very interesting session with an amazing panel of speakers that bring a variety of very interesting perspectives from around the globe. In the spirit of time, rather than my spending time in introducing the speakers, I've asked each one of them to say who they are, who they represent, their affiliation, and a little bit about themselves and why they're here. But you can, of course, go back to the pages on this session and hear their names and see their names and see a little bit more about them. I do recommend that you do read their papers and their slides. A number of them have very excellent papers that are worth the reading. We had to accommodate a lot in this session. So the flow may look a bit strange. What we plan on doing is to have a set of presentations, so the speakers will come up here. And at the end, we do want to have some time for a conversation, not just between the panelists, but with you. So if possible, I'd like to ask that you hold off your questions till we get to that part of the meeting. Last, I think the title is a great title for this session. And I think throughout the conference, we've been reading about how NRENs must work together in new ways. Just to name one thing, the globalization of science, research, and education has challenged the traditional ways that NRENs work. And in order to support now true collaboration, but also where that is going, as well as the things that make that collaboration possible, not just infrastructure, but also that platform of services that are needed to support collaboration. We can't do it alone. No NREN could do it alone. So today you'll hear perspectives from both all the way to sort of the local, to the regional, to the global. And we'll try to tell a story around that trajectory. And not only will emphasize the strategic role that NRENs play, but how vital it is that we work together and collaborate together in new ways. So with that said, Ronan is our first speaker, and again, I won't go into introductions here. So thank you.
Okay, many thanks, Anna, and many thanks to the TRENA committee for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I'm Ronan Byrne. I'm the CTO at the local NREN, HEAnet, the host NREN. And I was very happy that Lord Putnam in the previous session made reference to this project, which is our 100 meg project at second level. And this picture, which is a lovely picture, is also, in my opinion, a picture of a landmark in the future of teaching and learning at second level. So, the overview, the structure, just a little bit of context, HEAnet in schools, and then the benefits as I see it for NREN schools, higher education, and indeed the economy in general. And I'll close with just a little bit of an outlook slide. Very briefly on HEAnet, we're the local NREN, as I said, interestingly born out of this very institution back in '83 in a collaboration with the 6 other universities and the HEA, our Higher Education Authority. We're not-for-profit, incorporated in '97, and we've 50 staff members with typically network engineering and similar skills. The Schools Broadband Programme is where we connect all 4,000 schools in Ireland at first and second level. And we've been doing that since 2003 on behalf of the Department of Education. The way it works technically is a rainbow of telcos do the last mile, and they typically interconnect with us in Dublin, and we give them connectivity and onwards and upwards. We've seen a gradual increase in bandwidth, and this reflects really rather low levels of bandwidth and infrastructure across Ireland. 2005, we were targeting an average of 1 meg, so that's almost cute at this stage. 2009, when we refreshed the tender, it moved to 5 meg. 2012, an average of 7 meg, and these are headline speeds, so actual throughput is less than that. So not fantastic bandwidth. in the context of 100 meg. We also offer a portfolio of other services. We manage all the 4,000 routers across Ireland. We offer web filtering, content filtering. We're the guys that block the content and block the sites, the inappropriate sites, I should add. We do the security to firewalling the ACLs. We offer web hosting. We offer blogs. We allocate IP addresses and manage our DNS, all supported by proactive monitoring and tech support. So thus, we were very excited with the advent of the 100 meg program. This is again another nice picture of the former Minister of Education, that's Eamon Ryan, who was a particular pioneer of this program. Our own John Boland, Chief Executive of HEAnet, with pupils of Knockline celebrating the launch of the pilot event back in 2010. Knockline is just a couple of miles south of here. And the overview of the 100 megs is we're connecting all second-level schools. That's approximately 785 connections. We're giving them 100 megabits symmetrical bandwidth, two-way 100 meg. The funding of this could be interesting if you're interested in connecting schools. It's the Department of Communications are stepping up to incur the capital outlay, and they're handing the baton of annual rental to the Department of Education. So two funding streams here. And we're also benefiting from EU funding, our own National Development Plan, but also EU structural funds. And ERDF has been very useful for us on the capital element. That's European Regional Development Funding. That allows us to get capital where the infrastructure is particularly poor and needing investment. We're a single contracting authority, which enables us to be a consistent contracting authority, albeit there's two funding streams moving from one to the other. And a key message of this program and a key success is we're leveraging the HEAnet asset. We're opening up the backbone to transit the school's traffic. And we're targeting a 3-year national rollout. So quite an aggressive piece of work when you consider we're dealing with some very hard to reach places. The timetable, we had a pilot back in 2010, 78 schools spread across Ireland, including 4 island schools. 2002, we went up the western seaboard and into Midlands, 202 schools in 14 counties. You'll notice they're contiguous counties. Last year, we targeted Dublin and the greater Dublin area, Kildare and Meath, 236. And this year, as we speak, we're trying to close out the rest of the 9 counties of the Republic of Ireland with 269 schools, giving us a total of 785 connections across 26 counties in really what in reality is a time frame of about 2.5 years, because we're trying to do it by September. We didn't start till February in 2012. So that's the context, very quickly. So what is the benefit for the NREN in doing this, in connecting schools? In my opinion, the win-win for the NREN, firstly, let's talk about money. It's a new and diverse funding source. Previously, we were reliant on HEA funding, that's higher education funding. Now we're benefiting from funding at second level from the Department of Education. So in the business of portfolio risk and management, it's good to have a new funding source, but also a diverse one. It's leveraging the previous public investment in the NREN backbone. So you're delivering greater value for money from the backbone. Because you're connecting schools, naturally there's a greater dependency on the network, which means the argument for continued investment is an easier one to make. Just by merit of expanding the footprint, there's greater opportunities for economies of scale and shared services, which is our raison d'etre from the outset. Concentrates government investment in a single education network, and thus the economies of scale from that. And selfishly, from an NREN perspective, it's an opportunity to disseminate wider incidents of EduRoam in schools, federated access at second level, and try to encourage more service providers into the Federation Club. It increases our brokerage potential, which is an area we're trying to move into, cloud brokerage in particular, because previously in HEAnet, our population was approximately 200 staff and students at higher education. Now we're going to about 1 million users because it's approximately 800,000 staff and students at first and second level. So you have much better conversations with the bigger cloud providers in particular. And ultimately what we're about is trying to deliver greater value to the taxpayer. Just to give a little dashboard schematic, these are round numbers, so these are a little bit indicative, but just to give you an impact of the significance of schools, from an aggregate traffic point of view, and yes, schools use it less number of hours over the day than higher education, but you're looking at sort of 8 gig to 6 gig aggregate throughput, so it's significant. And similarly with funding, we would normally churn at about 12 to 15 million. When the schools are rolled out, that annual rental that I mentioned will be approximately 10 million. So it's a significant addition of revenue and traffic. Benefits for schools, and I was delighted that Lord Putnam referenced this project and referenced the potential for schools. And really just to pick up on some of that and going around the clock here, funding. First off, in Ireland we have a very difficult terrain to deliver broadband to, and the investment required is very significant, and schools would not have the wherewithal to make the investment we're talking about here. We're delivering them a fully managed network, so really all they need to give us is a comms room, and we plug in the router and we manage their connection proactively. And really we're allowing them to do what their main purpose in life is to do, which is to introduce new ways of teaching and new ways of learning, and everything that flows from that. But also benefit is from school administration. They can now access cloud resources and administer the school in a much more effective manner. Collaboration is the topic of this particular talk, so that it opens up whole new ways of collaborating with the benefit of ICT. And because every school, regardless if they're a small island school or a larger school in the urban area, they get the same 100 megs, thus there's no digital divide. And ultimately what this is enabling is a new digital strategy which our Department of Education and Skills have initiated this year, essentially on foot of the new broadband into these second level schools. Just to give you some graphics, I didn't include any videos, no time for that. Up in the top corner here we have an art teacher giving a virtual tour of Notre Dame. So the comparison to the old art book with the single photograph is interesting. So they have a tour of Notre Dame without leaving their desks, unfortunately for them. Interactive whiteboards, I would suggest, will get more interactive when you plug a 100 megabit pipe into the back of the wall. Video conferencing, here is our digital champion, Lord Putnam, and Commissioner Neely Crows participating in a video conference in Knockline, I believe that is, just south of here. And we have an instance use case of remote lectures. These 4 girls couldn't get honours maths lecture in their local school, so they're twinning with their sister school, and the lecturer is delivering it remotely, which means they can get their honours maths and then apply for courses they would otherwise not be able to do. This is an interesting read. I'm not going to go into the pedagogy of it all, but technology is transforming the way we live. This is the McKinsey report. The use case I have is very interesting. In a school in New Mexico, for example, teachers are using mobile computing devices to regularly assess kindergartners, difficult word, kindergartners' reading progress and tailor instruction to help them develop oral fluency. Within the first 3 years of use, the share of students reading at benchmark levels rose from 29% to 93%. And I deliberately picked a kindergarten's use case because you extrapolate that across first, second, and ultimately to the third level, you can see how it builds and builds from there. I'm going at speed here because I want to keep the time. Benefits for the economy then. And my argument here is that this programme, and the NREN in particular, is a vehicle for a very essential stimulus and a very appropriate, neutral, not-for-profit entity. And the win-win for the economy, the numbers here are kind of round numbers, but we're looking at a 30 million capital outlay to get 100 megs across the nation, and about a 10 million recurrent bill, what I mentioned earlier. And this is a catalyst for a series of tasks and jobs, from network engineering, building new masts. This programme has required new masts to be built in several parts of Ireland, civil digs across the country, and all the backroom stuff of engineering, network engineering, data rooms, and field engineering. And the procurement we do is competitive but fair, and we've seen awards to both large and small telcos. This is just an example of the pie chart of the awards, and you can see that 7 telcos have been fortunate to win different levels of connectivity. So it's a very fair market, and a market which would otherwise not exist. So it's good news for the telcos as well. I want to talk briefly about our procurement because that's a key success of this project. Leveraging the backbone avoids duplication of schools' traffic on otherwise commercial backup. So you're saving lots of money there. Schools not adjacent to campus POPs or universities are 4 to 5 times more expensive to connect than those that are adjacent to a school POP. We just refreshed the 78 schools in the pilot program, which we connected in 2010. They have come in at, actually, it's less than, they're 50% cheaper this year, 2014, because again, the single contracting authority is pushing a single procurement and trying to get better and better discounts. Our procurement is I think it's quite creative. First of all, it's a framework approach with a family of telcos involved. That saves lots of money. We invite telcos to interconnect with regional POPs. That saves lots of money. The volume, because we go out in big numbers, that attracts discounts. That saves lots of money. And the graphic rollout, because you're doing things contiguously, joined up. So you go into a particular corner of the country, you do all your, you get your best utilization of backhaul and pipes and wireless hops, as well as field engineering. That saves lots of money. And this particular one is a really key piece which saves lots and lots of money, which is we allow the telcos to create their own lots, create their own bundles. We first said, will we create a lot called, create a lot called County Mayo or County Sligo, but we don't know where the fibre footprints are, we don't know where the wireless infrastructures are. They do, so they're in the best place to bid the most cost-effective lot. Gives us a big challenge with evaluating a rather large data set, but they create a lot, and that saves a ton of money. And because we're in a framework, we can run many competitions if we see the value is not evident when we evaluate tenders. Particularly single bid schools can be very expensive. We can put that out to the market. The telco can bundle it back into a more cost-effective lot, and we save money on that. One use case, we did 15 schools and saved $1 million over the course of a 3-year term. So the argument is it's a stimulus effect. It's delivering essential service which the stimulus should. Schools would not otherwise spend the money. Absolutely, they would not be able to create a spend of 30 million. So we're creating a larger market for the telcos, which is good news for them, because I know in other jurisdictions there's a concern that you're upsetting the market. In this case, we're creating an absolute opportunity for the market. And the business impact reaches every town in Ireland because there is a post-primary school in Ireland. So you're impacting every town in Ireland, which is generating more jobs. And another key piece, and as we're seeing, once you put the pipe into the school, that's a catalyst for more jobs, because schools are now investing in Wi-Fi, access devices, tablets, content. Publishers are suddenly getting interested because the highway is there to access it. So that's the stimulus argument. Just a quote to measure impacts, but a quote from the strategic networks groups who spend their time trying to measure broadband's impact. We have demonstrated that the local economic growth and secondary investment enabled by broadband is 10 times the initial investment, and the contribution to GDP is 15 times that investment. So we're snowballing the investment. Very briefly, I wasn't going to put this in, but I thought it relevant for the audience because we are typically concentrated on higher education. The benefit for higher education, as I would argue it, well, first it strengthens the NREN model, and typically the HEIs are shareholders of that NREN, so that's good news for them. It enables collaboration across second and third level schools, teacher education being a good one. The teachers on the teacher learning course at third level can access resources at second. And ICT enables seamless transition from second level, indeed first level. So a learner identity moving from kindergarten right the way through to fourth level is very feasible, as is ePortfolio, where your personal projects and content moves with you as you transition through the system. The last 3 bullets here, I put a question mark on because I do not have any empirical evidence, but I would strongly suggest that you immerse somebody in a more digital environment at first and second level, they're likely to be more digitally savvy entrants to third level. I would suggest that if teachers can use the ICT to better enable learning outcomes at first and second level, it's likely you're going to have higher outcomes leading into third level. The OECD PISA is the program that measures, one program that measures that. And I would suggest ICT enables a move away from the rote learning system that is our Leaving Cert, that's our final second level exam exit challenge, because ICT enables more resourceful research-based and online assessment-based learning, that it's likely they're going to come out more resourceful and effective and more ready for third level. That's the quick win-win summary for higher education. How am I doing? Okay, but there's more work to do, as illustrated by that wonderful graphic. On the school's to-do list, yet to do, there's gaps in the road ahead. One, identity management. Certainly in Ireland, we don't have comprehensive identities at first and second level. That, of course, creates a problem for trying to roll out federated access. But we are rolling out our Edugate federated access system for teachers. We do have identities for teachers. But you do need those pupil identities and a policy around it. If the government, and it has an intention to introduce ePortfolio and you're managing personal data, online content, as Lord Putnam said just earlier in the plenary, we want to see more content and more dynamic content and richer content. Wi-Fi networks, that's on the to-do list. and teacher development, because a lot of this talk is about technology, but as we know, broadband is just one ingredient, so says this ITU UNESCO report of last year. Broadband connectivity in and of itself would not improve the quality of education. The real challenge is to help teachers and students use technology broadband in relevant and authenticated ways that actually improve education and foster the knowledge and skills necessary for lifelong learning. One slide on primary schools, because I've been mainly talking about secondary schools, and interestingly that kindergartner quote and Lord Putnam's reference to primary schools been particularly receptive to ICT. Just the state of the nation, this is probably more for a political message than anything else. In 2005, the average broadband in primary schools was 1 meg. Nearly a decade later, the average actual throughput is only 5 meg, so not a quantum leap in nearly a decade. If there's no intervention, you've got to ask the question, what will their broadband levels be in 2020? It's a little bit scary. And so says Vint Cerf, one of the fathers of the internet, and this is a very recent quote from a Project Syndicate website, good website if you want to go look at it. But education, one of the last big economic sectors yet to be transformed by the digital age, is on the cusp of a revolution. And this is particularly relevant. Governments must expand national infrastructure so that students in densely packed urban areas and remote rural villages alike can get online. So, just about on time. Summary. Benefit for the NREN, just a high-level benefit, summary benefits. It leverages the network assets. That's the key piece, because you're returning value back to the taxpayer. Opportunity for wider shared services and the benefit that brings for the NREN. It's a new funding source. From a risk management perspective, it's good to have a new funding source. A wider role, it gives the NREN a wider role, and it's working across all levels of education. The benefit of schools, probably more obvious, but the richer content. The collaboration opportunities. It enables online assessment methods that move away from rote learning. It's an enabler for that. And an opportunity for improved learning outcomes, which is really what we're all about here. The benefits for high-level education and society, I would argue, in general. The calibre of student entrance and their increased digital know-how arriving on the campus in first year. The economy. It's a stimulus via an independent NREN. I think that's a key message, and I'd challenge you to find a better vehicle than a not-for-profit NREN to deliver such a stimulus, while generating a larger market for the telcos. So that's good news for them too. It's a win-win. And schools broadband enables new telco business. Telcos build new infrastructure, and because they built infrastructure for schools, they can do more commercial business in that corner of the island. Schools bandwidth of itself triggers further schools ICT investment. And a question which we have no answer for, but schools bandwidth triggers initiative benefits we have yet to see or imagine. If you take somebody from a 10 by 10 room, put them in a 100 by 100 room, they'll do things they never could do before. So in closing, I want to thank particularly HEAnet and particularly the schools team that have helped deliver this very successful project, and all the partners, the telcos and the equipment providers who helped us to do that. I want to pay reference to a few politicians who, in the backdrop of probably the most austere financial times Ireland have seen, former Minister of Communications, Eamon Ryan, was a particular pioneer of this, but Pat Rabbitte, the current Minister of Communications, took up the baton and ran with it, and the gift that keeps on giving, which is the recurrent rental on this programme, has been agreed and accepted by Education and Skills, so thank you to Rory Quinn. But there's lots of work to do, is the message, as mentioned in the previous slides. So thanks to them, but there's more work to do. That's it. 20 minutes. Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ronan. So now we're going to help set the stage. So this was really interesting to set the stage on how NRENs can work locally too with their expanded communities. So later I'll ask the panelists to also talk a little bit about how NREN to NREN efforts can also help enhance what we do with schools and other expanded communities. So now we're going to set the stage to go global, maybe interplanetary, I don't know. But Tom is going to help do that, and then I'll just ask if you don't mind to introduce the next speaker and then the following one so that then we can have that flow. So take it away.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. My name's Tom Fryer. I work for Dante and Géant and work within the team that focuses on supporting liaison between the Géant community and our global partners from around the world. And so from that point of view, it's very good to see that there's a wide global audience here this morning. I'd like to start off by showing you a map which most of you are probably very familiar. Normally I will spend a good few minutes talking about this map, but I want to jump over this map because it shows the connectivity. And what we've been seeing in recent years is that it's not just the connectivity provision globally that matters, but it's that we start getting the services which enables collaboration between our users, among our users, to be better and better at a more global level. But I'd just like to emphasize that at the moment we've got about 105 countries around the world that are connected via the various regional networks and in the United States as well, bringing all those users together around the world. So on the service collaboration front, we see different types of ways that things have gone on in the past. We've seen services that are developed individually between regions, and when it comes to trying to bring them together, there are issues of interoperability which causes us problems. One example that we've seen is bandwidth on demand, with a system, a tool being developed in the United States called OSCARS, a tool being developed in Europe called Autobahn, and making sure that we can provide bandwidth on demand services between North America and Europe has been a challenge. We've had a collaboration over a number of years which has worked on the interoperability, but that costs extra resource in what we're doing. It's a service that is functional. We still sometimes come across issues. It continues to need support work. Another area is perfSONAR, a performance monitoring tool which has followed two paths of development in North America and Europe as well, leading to two non-interoperable systems. Again, there's been a collaboration between North America and Europe to make those two systems interoperable. And again, there's the maintenance of making sure that interoperability continues, which is problematic. So now we've taken a different path, and we've actually sat down together, the North Americans and the Europeans, making sure that others that are using perfSONAR around the world are making, we make sure that they're aware of the fact that the conversation's going on, so that we are removing the fact that we've got two types of perfSONAR. We're going to go back to one. We're going to take the best of what is in the European perfSONAR, the best of what is in the American perfSONAR, and make one service available. EduRoam is a service which I imagine many of you are using this morning. I don't think I need to say much about it, but it gives you that ability to move from one location to another where EduRoam is available. With your credentials from your home institute, you are able to get online. At the moment, EduRoam is available in 68 territories around the world, stretching from North America to Latin America, Europe, Africa, Asia Pacific. So it is going global. EduGain, the interfederation service for federations, enabling access to services for end users, again, is growing globally. So these are two services that have grown up on their own. There isn't a sort of an alternative option available, really. And so these are growing organically around the world. At the moment, there are 24 members of EduGain. There are 7 that are currently in the process of joining EduGain, and there are another 16 federations, some of whom are very close to getting to that joining stage. EduConf is a video conferencing sort of support tool service in that it gives us a directory of video conferencing facilities within a given region, provides also certification to show that the standard of a video conferencing facility is acceptable to be able to enable people to interact via video conferencing. That's a Géant service. There's actually a demo at the Géant stand this week if you're interested in learning more about that. Security is an area that we're ever more aware of, and there are discussions that are really beginning to take off now between Europe and North America in particular, but also looking to discuss with other areas with a Géant perspective. Very often, in this instance, it's not the technical aspects that are the problem, but the legal aspects. So I'd now like to focus on a particular collaboration which has been going on since June of 2012, and will be continuing to the end of October this year. This is called Elcira, which is a Europe-Latin America collaborative e-infrastructure for research activities. The idea is to make tools available within Latin America and across to Europe as well for research that is going on between these two regions. So it creates an e-infrastructure including a variety of things which I'll go into in a few moments, and the partners are both in Latin America and in Europe, as you can see in the list there. So one of the first things that Elcira is doing is expanding EduRoam within Latin America. We have now got a good number of, we've got 4 countries currently which have EduRoam in Latin America. which have been provisioned with Eduroam through the Elcira project. In addition, there is Brazil, who already had it before the project. Next week, I expect to be seeing an additional country when I'm in a conference in Mexico, and we expect the Mexicans to have Eduroam available. And Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Uruguay are very much in the process of getting Eduroam. So Elcira has been a very strong project in expanding Eduroam across Latin America. The same for EduGain, that the Elcira project is helping countries within the region to develop their own federations, then helping them to make sure that they can integrate it and join EduGain. At the moment, we have two federations which are integrated with EduGain at the moment. The Brazilian CAFE was already in before Elcira. The Chilean NREN has joined as a result of Elcira. Colombia and Mexico are very close to joining now, and there's development within Argentina. There is also collaboration going on between EduConf and Civic, and I've got to cut, so I'll be very quick. So that's the video conference tool, and we're also creating a platform of tools which are web conferencing, large file transfer, a wiki, and community management, which are available to the end users through a portal to make sure that they can actually really do the collaboration they want. Thank you.
Really short. Sorry. When I have some slides. Okay, thank you. My name is Michael Stanton. As you can tell, I'm originally from Britain. I've been in Brazil for 40 years, and I have the great fortune to be working for the Brazilian Research and Education Network, which is the largest of the NRENs in Latin America, a member of CLARA, RedCLARA. And it's maintained entirely by the Brazilian government. And we have a rather different problem from the one Ronan was describing. We have a country which is huge in terms of size. The diameter is over 4,000 kilometers. The population is 200 million. And we have as many university campuses on our network as you have schools on yours. So it's just a question of size. The bandwidth to many of them does not differ greatly from yours too, but that's in the more remote regions. So, I have a colleague here, Eduardo Grisengi, who is working on this problem at the moment. Okay, Elcira is a service platform to assist communication and collaboration, but what I want to do, or what I propose to do here, is to talk about other less formalized forms of international collaboration which we've been working with, mainly provoked by our own user community, or opportunities which have been perceived by us along the last few years. Now, I'm going to talk specifically about these three areas: scientific collaboration, network development and test beds, and cultural and medical collaborations. The motive for the user-oriented motive at the time of both of these the creation of these networks, RMP and RedCLARA, was certainly to assist very greatly scientific collaboration. The physicists were complaining that they needed international access in the 1980s, and RMP was created as a direct result of this and other pressure from people in IT or in computing and so on. And so big experimental observational science continues to be a major driver for research and education networks. And there are a number of collaborations in which we have users who participate. I mentioned here some of the high-energy physics, astronomy sites which are going on. One of these is quite important for the future, this LSST. It's actually a telescope which is being built in Chile. It has a large user community. It's mainly funded from the US, but it has other partners, and it's starting to be built now. They're planning to come online in another 5 years' time, but it's going to have a big impact on future connectivity for our region. This is one of the big things about these large scientific proposals, because they actually help us to justify great increases in our facilities to be able to handle them, and also to handle the other users we have. And so we've got this high positive feedback for high bandwidth and international collaborations, international connections. And we have, as a result, become involved in new network collaborations such as GLIF, which is since about 2008. Second area, we are very close to the Brazilian computer research community, computing and communication. And so we participate actively through our members in collaborative developments. And I've put in some of these things, some of the items here. Tom mentioned perfSONAR. We've been active in developing, contributing to the development of perfSONAR since 10 years ago or more. We've been accompanying, because of the GLIF and other connections, activities in dynamic circuits and bandwidth on demand for our own use and to collaborate internationally. We have been involved in the last 4 years in operating or building a future internet testbed and interacting with the GLIF and FIRE communities in Europe. And we have been developing our own videoconferencing software also independently of the one which Tom mentioned, called mConf. There's a poster on mConf visible here during this meeting, and there are also 2 other presentations by RMP, one yesterday by Yara and one this afternoon by Fausto on testbeds and perfSONAR. Cultural and medical collaborations, it's the last area. Most of these are based on audiovisual capacities, some of them developed by RMP and the universities. And these include collaborations with our friends from Asia Pacific now. They have been organizing cyber performances involving dance and music from other parts of the world at their meetings. And this has been an interesting and renewing and rewarding experience. It's good to be able to bring some of our from our dance school at one of our universities to participate in this. We've been participating in digital cinema and related high resolution video activities through CineGrid since 2009, and most recently we're currently involved in preparing for the World Cup this next month and the Olympic Games in 2 years' time for helping the Japanese to transmit live 8K video to their country from Brazil. Just 2 comments. There is clearly an untapped demand for greater international collaborations. The availability of abundant international bandwidth, which has grown up in the last few years because of these other activities, helps us a lot. But we can't always easily identify this demand due to the lack of familiarity of the people who want to express this demand to be able to realize what they can do. And the campus network can always be a problem. So that there are solutions to this. We need more showcasing and dissemination, and I'll stop there. Thank you.
My name is Francis Lee, and I come from the Asia area. And the project I'm going to talk about is called Trans-Euro-Asia Information Network. And it's a program that's been ongoing for a while. Let me tell you where we are. This is Asia region, and it's funded by both the EU as well as the members down here. They contribute the money and circuits to it. We cover China, India, Indonesia. Think about it, the population is very large. The range from Japan, Korea, the more developed countries, to the less developed countries. But today I'm going to talk to you about only one specific work package in the large three work packages, and how to enhance the human capital and international collaboration. Well, how many of you are network engineers? Put up your hand. This is a network conference, isn't it? Okay. We organize training for our network engineers and network security with APNIC. We jointly fund that, and we stretch our dollars as much as we can. But I want to talk about something else, and that's global telemedicine project that we have slowly grown over the years in the region. It's headed by Professor Shuji Shimizu from Kyushu University, and we have great goals. You know, he really wants to make use of technology and how to spread what their knowledge is to greater number of doctors. So back in 2003, in early 2003, they just had between Fukuoka and Seoul. Those were the only locations, and they did a video conference across that, transmit on DVTS 20 meg across that. But over the years, between 2003 to 2005, they started spreading all over the place, to Bangkok, to Singapore, to Taiwan, to Hawaii, Tokyo, I mean, down to Adelaide as well. Between 2006 and 2007, when our network stretches further, the TN network stretches further, we reach Mumbai, okay? And we reached down to Jakarta, where we had a demonstration there in Bandung, and we went up to Canberra. Canberra was not an issue. Australia had a very good connection to the region. And beyond that, after 2008, we hit Brazil and everywhere else. So it grew from a small regional experiment to try and do telesurgery and show that off, okay, to one where it stretched to the region and beyond. To stretch the region without the network would be very, very difficult, okay? There's no way they could do that, okay? So, and stretching beyond, you need collaboration between all the NRENs. So now there are 34 countries, 221 institutions, and 360 events have been run since then. They don't need your 1 gig link. They just need some good NRENs connectivity. What do? They have postgraduate courses across Asia. Here, Korea, Japan, Vietnam. And here, we actually use whatever we could. Here, we use video and stretches to Indonesia, Kazakhstan, Hungary. I can't pronounce the top right. We use whatever technology we can running a stable NREN network. That started something else going. We also saw that there were some other groups in the fringe that has not come into our community yet. And these were the clinicians, people who talk about epidemics and all those things. How do we get them? And a year ago when I came for the TNC meeting 2013, it set things going and said, okay, let's organize a dengue fever, let's focus it. And we organized a workshop, a joint APAN-TN workshop in Bandung. And it was overwhelming. There was no more space to sit down on. And we had people from Sri Lanka, Singapore, from Australia, from Japan. Even in Japan, although there's not dengue fever is not something that's epidemic there, it is. People are carrying it back, and they do have cases down there. And what's more, in June this year, 12th of June this year, the Caribbean islands is going to take on the same thing and organize a seminar there. And I gathered in Tanzania, Ubuntu might be organizing another workshop there. And what we want to do is slowly link these people together, and that's using our NREN. We have to work with other organizations. Work with Dante, Trina, Karen, Pacific Wave, Transpac, Internet 2, NSRC, APNIC, NIA, APAN. We have to work and stretch the dollars as much to benefit our community. We have very little money, but we are willing to put in the money there to stretch it, okay, and get things going. Okay, and I know my time is up. we have very limited time. Next, I'll introduce Tutu from Ubuntu. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For clarity, the name is Tusu, not Tutu. Tutu is a bishop in South Africa. He's actually a Nobel Prize laureate, which I'm not. It's a pleasure to be here, and I was saying to Tom yesterday that at Malaga, TNR conference in Malaga, I was a sole voice from the continent, I think along with Boubacar, talking about the possibility of research and education networking in Africa. And today, I'm surprised and amazed, we even talked about it again yesterday, that the number of delegates from the African continent is simply staggering. And we are here so that we can extend the human community, which we believe is the key part of content and collaboration when we talk about research and education networking. See, infrastructure can be very easily dealt with. Content comes from the people, and therefore if you want a strong network, you start with the people. Now, we normally accept that people are part of information systems, but it's very difficult for us to accept that people are actually part of the content, and probably the most critical content, because they are sustainable. So the relationships we build in terms of cooperation and collaboration are what are going to build sustainability. Now, coming to the key theme of this discussion, collaboration, I'm tempted, and I cannot say a lot in 4 minutes, to lift this to a slightly higher level. There's, on the one hand, cooperation, working together towards mutual benefit. And I've got a feeling that in many of the cases, the things we're talking about is really cooperation. Collaboration is working together towards a common goal, and goals are normally lofty and high, something which can stir the imagination of everybody and says that, yes, this is something that can bind us together and that we can really do. I feel that sometimes we seek to justify the existence of NRENs because somewhere we have lost that kind of goal which you can put to the community, and they get excited and say that, yes, NRENs have got real value. So to me, the question then is, if we're talking about collaboration, how can we recapture the high ground as NRENs? How can we bring about the content people? I was fascinated by the presentation yesterday in the morning. I forget the name of the gentleman. It was about creating a common space for children to go and work in and invent and work together. And to me, NRENs are much like that, creating a space in which people can come together and work to innovate and collaborate and so on. But there must be some higher goal somewhere. If I can get an example from Rotary International, some years ago we said we are going to eliminate polio from the face of the earth. Now, you don't have to explain that because that is a big, lofty goal, and if it happens, everybody knows that this is going to be beneficial. So then the challenge I put to ourselves, and I still do this all the time, how can we retransform and maybe reinvent NRENs so that NRENs don't become the toys of engineers like me, drunk on the opium of high speed? We have now got 100 gigabits per second. We can do this and we can do X, Y, Z. So what? We really need to bring back that feeling on board that, yes, this is about content, it's about development, and we are collaborating to achieve it. Okay, the engineering is exciting, but these are not engineers' tools. This is something that can really serve humanity if we handle it well. I beg to submit. Thank you very much.
Well, great. And Tusu, you cannot sit there. So now I'm going to ask everybody that presented to sit here. That was the deal, guys. Thank you. Okay, so first of all, I would like to ask for a round of applause to all of them. But we can save that to the end. And I know that probably you have a number of questions that came up during the different presentations. Again, I apologize, particularly to the speakers, that they know I was flashing the cards on the time, but we wanted to make sure we had plenty of time for some discussion. I think, again, we've heard some fascinating perspectives and actual work that's happening from, again, the local and the work and the strategic roles that NRENs can play in supporting expanded communities, like in the case of Ireland's HEAnet and the work with the schools, all the way with perspectives on services across continents and important collaborations, the work in medicine. I love to some of the pieces mentioned also about how it's really the people too And Tuso, I think you close with a great set of remarks. NRENs are not just the toys here, but it's really about the people and the content and what we can do. So first of all, let me turn it to the audience and see if any one of you is bold enough to pose the first question. And if you do, please make sure you get the microphone so everybody could hear you.
Hi, I'm Rob Evans from Janet, and I want to really pick up on one of the points that Tusu made at the end there, because Tusu was the first person, I think, in that panel to bring up the aspect of the content providers, and maybe I'd like the opinions of the rest of the panel. How do we go about engaging more with the commercial world, with the world outside the RNE community, in enabling access to content within the NRENs?
Anybody care to?
Okay, I can make a comment and others can come in on this. I think the first thing, and we have tried to do this in the Alliance, it is very early days, I should say, so I cannot claim that we have been successful, is to engage the content people right from the start. Because at the end of the day, what we are designing is for them, and it should be driven by them. I've said to many people about information systems that the last thing you ever want to do is to entrust your mechanic with your destination. But here we actually set the destinations of the NRENs, which is maybe good in some ways, but in doing that, don't really usurp the real ownership of the NRENs, the universities, the researchers that own that. Commercial providers, we said from day one to our commercial providers that we're here as partners. And I think many of them accepted it. And people like Dante will know that because of this, the prices went down because they started seeing the long-term investment that education, rather a connected education community can bring to them as well. They look at the future markets and they see that this is a real potential for them. And therefore I think it is gradual engagement and mainly redefining the NREN space. So that's not them against us, but us together working cooperatively towards a common goal.
Anybody?
If I would add to that, I think awareness. I think a lot of the publishers may not know, particularly when we're rolling out new infrastructure, and particularly around federation, where they're more concerned with licensing and negotiation. We can now validate the audiences, an ENR audience, education research audience, or a schools audience. So I think there's an awareness piece there. But absolutely, I think there's great opportunity to also get a part of the curriculum, so talking to the national curriculum people. And wouldn't it be great to hear our late, great Irish poet Seamus Heaney narrate his own verse rather than, no disrespect, the Kerry teacher with a very different guttural accent, for example. You know, so I think there's great opportunity.
I think I'd add from a sort of wider regional point of view that it's important that we understand that what the requirements are of the RNE community in terms of accessing private, commercial services, that there are concerns about security. So we've got to understand what those are and be able to express them and make that outreach to them so that they can provide us with a service that we can then go out and actually make available via our networks.
Well, I think on that note, you touched on something that I'd like to ask too, which is, I think you talk about the requirements, and I think one of you also mentioned about, how do you get to those that can maximize what you could do? How do you educate on the possibilities and the opportunities? So could I ask you guys to maybe comment a little bit on what efforts you're doing to establish that dialogue, what mechanisms, what kind of outreach, what are some of the things that you think are important that we consider in terms of the support framework to enable that dialogue, and that it's also bi-directional. So could you guys comment a little bit on that? Of course.
Can I comment a little bit about that? I mean, I take the example of telesurgery. Is getting the surgeons to come together. Okay, we facilitate that. We provide them with a network. And during the video conference, yes, we have the technical staff. But we need to take that one step further. And that is to train. The hospitals actually have technical IT support staff. And that's to train the hospital IT staff to learn how to use the video conference. And you'll be surprised you say you got audio video conference here and there. But there are still a number of people out there that needs some help to get that going correctly. We did that video conference in Bandung, and we had to run a few trials to get people used to what H.323 is and get things correct. It still needs a lot of work. And you can't expect the surgeons to do that. So end of this year, we're actually bringing a number of these technical people together in Fukuoka, together with the surgeons who are having a meeting down there, and train this group of IT people so that when they go back to their own country, they can support future telesurgery going on. I think we mustn't forget that, because it's not your high bandwidth 1 gig that's using it needs, but I think it's great impact on humanity as a whole.
At RMP, for some time, we've had an initiative in telemedicine, which has been supported by the Ministry of Health in Brazil. In fact, it's brought in, there are now 4 separate ministries which are giving their institutional support to the network and money too, which helps. So this has involved creating a community at the teaching hospitals at the state university or the national universities in the country, and it has developed quite a lot by creating interest groups in different areas of surgery or diseases, and to provide them with interaction facilities, video conferencing, and so on. And this has led to it's become a very popular program in this community, and has enabled a lot of collaboration which would not exist without it, because it's mainly putting people of the same field in contact in different cities, for instance, which rather than say from the city to the countryside or something like that, which is a different emphasis. It's concentrating on teaching hospitals. Most recently, this has developed into providing high quality video transmissions of including surgeries. So there was a demo recently at Internet 2 and before that at Cinegrid about live surgeries which have been shown in detail, which even the surgeons had never seen before because of the resolution of the images which were used on that occasion. They were using 4K imaging, which is quite high. So this is an area which we have got very involved in, and I don't know whether this is something can be transferred to others, but certainly we can provide information if needed.
I mean, I find it's very interesting. I work for Jean, but I've also worked on the ALICE project, ALICE 2 project for Latin America, and seen what's going on in Asia Pacific, where they do create and really try and support within the whole region specific user groups which have societal benefit. Within the Jean perspective, we are the Jean community, the Jean network, and what we do to support users is at the European level. So the contact with the end users is through the NREN, and that's where it should be. But we do have large user groups that have very specific requirements, where just going individually to each of the NRENs is not necessarily the way that it can work. We've had a very good example recently with EU METSAT, which is gathering meteorology data coming from satellites, being brought down to a particular station and needs to be distributed. So we've been working our user support team has been working very hard to try and create a sort of a one-stop shop where that we can work as a single point and help work with the NRENs to make sure that the users' requirements are met technically. There's another area I'd like to speak about, I think, in terms of the outreach and making end users aware of what is available, the tools that they can use to enable their collaborations, and that is that we through Elcira we're developing these tools, and we might hopefully see them expand elsewhere to other world regions. But we need to make sure that people actually know that we can develop them. But if we haven't got them using them, then our effort is going by, and we haven't really done much. We've got to get people aware, and that obviously comes through the NRENs. But and material needs to be developed, but we need to make sure that material is shared easily around the globe. And from that perspective, the TNC last year in Maastricht, a global PR network was set up, and one of the areas that I think can help in working out is making sure the material that is made available in one area can be distributed around the world for adaptation and for use by whoever wants to use it and whoever can benefit from it.
More comments? Comments from you guys?
I'd like to, Valentino Cavalli, I'm the Acting Secretary General of Terena. I was thinking, global collaboration makes us stronger, and there's certainly, something which is common to the examples that we've, listened to in order to get sort of setting the scene. I'm thinking about federated identity management and as a common requirement, which is fundamental to the deployment of services, and in particular, there are some NRENs in Europe who are looking at providing federated identity management for schools. They have particular issues, they don't have resources, they don't have the expertise for that, and NRENs are interested in trying to support that. Similarly, in the United States, there is an activity to provide federated identity management for K-12. There is a collaboration discussion going on in the REFETs, which is a global environment in which NRENs from different regions, and not only NRENs, are actually discussing about this. Then there is the Elcira project, which is building on federated identity management, providing identity federation and EduGain and all that. Similarly, I think there is interest in Asia Pacific and in Africa as well. And then obviously this also builds on the experience that we have heard from Ronan here. So I wanted to just try to see if you guys have some views about this, or how NRENs could help in this respect, particularly in helping on the deployment of federated identity management towards user organizations, towards schools, and see if there is anything that we could do together in order to make it stronger.
There's
a lot in there. Yeah.
I mean, this is something that I think is actually already being discussed on the Elcira table. And you'll forgive me, I'll take a slightly different angle, but I think it's connected. And that is that we see that there are NRENs within, potentially within Europe, within Latin America, within Africa, Asia Pacific, where the NRENs don't necessarily have the technical resources, they don't have the manpower to be able to establish their own federation identity, maintain it, do the work to get it federated into EduGain. And I think there's potentially a role at a regional level for federation as a service. And that's certainly something that we are beginning to talk about, and it would be very interesting to see how we develop that in the next the coming year, I suppose, and what we do after Elcira.
Sorry.
I can say that we are definitely doing that in the Alliance. I think we have started taking steps in that direction. We always tell the NRENs that we don't want to step in the space where they are able to do things. And some of them can do it. Where they cannot do, we shall come in. But at some point beyond that, we're also looking at regional identity federation. Of course, the challenge in that is always creating trust, because nowadays, I think you had the talk this morning, if you put a lot of information together online, nobody knows who is getting access to it, and that creates some challenges when you start talking about regional things and transcontinental cooperation or collaboration.
If I can come in again on that, I mean, I think we're already working on federation as a service within GEAL. We've got experiences, and I think it's important that we make sure that we share those experiences, and that it's not that another region should necessarily take on what we've got, but they should at least have the opportunity to learn from what we've done and implement that for themselves if they so wish. I think it's very important that we are, as communities, communicating on what we're doing, and where we do find common interests, that we are looking to how we can harness them, exploit them, benefit from them.
I mean, what I'd like to say is that Singapore. We really have to thank RNet very, very much for helping us deploy some of the services and helping us getting on. But once you deploy the service, the end users, once one of them picked up and say, hey, this is nice, the word of mouth spread to the other CIOs because they're all sitting on the same table. Hey, you got that going. And the good thing about it is you put it on the newspaper and say, hey, you could do this, and it's on the public newspapers. The other CIOs, oh, I need to get that as well. And they'll come to you. You don't have to really go to them. But really, we have to thank, Stingray and I have to thank RNet very, very much for helping us to get things off the ground for the EduRoam, the cloud stores. We're trying that out. And that's what it is. It's helping each other. You have expertise, on certain things and teaching us, hey, that you could do this and that. And then for us to help the others that are coming along. And that's what the NREN, that's why I say the global collaboration is important. And that's something that we're going to differ us from a general internet service providers. This type of services identity. Those are services we can provide to our community that the general internet service providers cannot.
If I could add to all of that, I think federation identity, it offers tremendous potential. I think it's probably the greatest silent success of NRENs in recent years. And I think a key message that I take from it, rather than single sign-on and ease of sharing of resources and so forth, is the ability to validate a student as a student or a researcher as a researcher or a staff member, because then you get the attention of the commercial audience. And we've had some success in a short period of years in Ireland, and we're attracting a lot of interest around student discount and then alliances with commercial vendors that want to, at face value, want to improve the welfare of the student or the staff member. So I think that validating a student or a researcher is a tremendous piece. I'd go so far as to suggest, crazy idea, throw it out there, that we're bringing this validated pool of resources to the commercial world, be it banks, be it merchants, be it visas and so forth. And as we move into mobile commerce and mobile identity, I would like to see the NRENs and the trickle down to the end users and the campus facilities to get some share of that discounting, that action, that be it a transaction fee or something. I can see an NREN moving into a treasury department because we're bringing this wonderful resource to the commercial world, but what are we getting in return and how are we funding it? So we need to think about the sustainability of that. At the schools level, which I think hopefully will come, is federation can give you that authentication to personal data. So if you get into the business of e-portfolios, you absolutely need to authenticate the personal data, particularly over a lifelong piece. And if you can use that to change what I think they generally recognise is a flawed rote learning system that we have at second level, certainly in Ireland, to be more creative, that can only be a good thing. So I think federation offers tremendous potential.
Other questions?
Alex Reid from RNet. Thank you very much, Francis, for your kind words. But it stimulates me to think, what are the ways in which NRENs can learn about what other NRENs are doing and thus ask them for help or contribute to them and so on. Now, Internet 2 is a great conference where quite a number of people from outside the US attend. Tarina, likewise, had a lot of people from outside Europe to attend. APAN predominantly is just APAN region, but if we have all these regional conferences, should we be thinking about a global conference, or is it possible to just expand Tarina a little bit, or whatever it's going to be called in the future, in line with its changing remit anyway, to make it that forum where there's a genuinely global interchange of activity can take place? Or are we, do you think that it's adequate the way it's going at the moment? And serendipity, where serendipity plays a big part.
Can I?
Yes, and let me add to that too. I love that question. So please share your perspectives. We're all not going to be around, hopefully because we've retired to some tropical place or something, but how do we ensure too that this carries on? So that it's not just because we have great relationships between us and we happen to see each other 2 or 3 times a year, But how do we make this sort of take a life of its own?
Yeah.
So please,
Yeah,
who would like to start?
I'll try. I've been criticised at work for travelling a lot. I mean, last month I was at the Global Summit of Internet 2. This week I'm at the Torino conference. I've already decided, thinking of not going to the GLIF meeting, which is in New Zealand, the APAN meeting in Taiwan this year, because it's getting the stage moves a lot. There are an awful lot of large conferences of the kind you're talking about. GLIF's not so big, obviously, but I mean they're all interesting and they're all means of coming into contact with people. Although, of course, not all of them are from the place where the conference is held. Now that Internet 2 has decided to adopt the global sort of adjective on their meetings, this causes a bit of a problem. We're going only to have global meetings in the United States now, or is global going to be a movable feast, if you like, something which we're going to have global US, global Europe, global Asia.
I'd like to say that if we adopt the global, we need to be global. So, obviously, we have to serve, our community in the United States, but there's been openness to think about that global means global.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah, well, that's good.
Comments?
Maybe what I'd say, it's our responsibility. We come here, we meet up with different people, we see things. We take it upon ourselves responsibility to go back to where we are, to say, hey, let's follow up on this and that. And that is important. And I was thinking, in actual fact, this morning, last night, after a few drinks with my Japanese friends, to say, hey, I find that we have a number of people from the Asia region coming here, but there are not many of us are presenting and sharing what's happening down there. I think maybe next year, when we have the Torino meeting down here, maybe we should have a session where we have the Asia-Oceania group of people specific for that to share not only just the network, but what's happening, what's the application that's running, and then we can interchange a little bit better. So that, I mean, we are just the first, it's just like we are the scouts going out. The troops are coming to join in and bring them in and make them interact with each other. And I think that's our responsibility.
Yes, and I don't want to underestimate the power of people. I said at the beginning that this is the greatest content we can share. Some years back, for example, I don't know how long ago, I met one Dale Smith and one Steve Hute from NSRC. We became friends, so that a collaboration developed. Now, already below us, there are about 3 generations of engineers who are working together because of that. So even if we leave the stage, that continues. I met another man called Tom Dyer, I forget, somewhere in Africa a long time ago, and we started coming to TNC. I don't know if he's around here. But now you have got about 20 people here, and they take the experiences back. And this is important because there are no formalities, there are no barriers. It is person to person. There are no countries, there are no MOUs, and things work like that. I don't believe in making events bigger and bigger because eventually they lose direction and meaning. If anything, we should be thinking more about distributing them so that each area has got the capacity to run this kind of event for exchange of information and experience.
There's 55 countries represented at the TNC this year, which is excellent. But that's only just over half of the countries that are connected to the global RNE infrastructure. And there are far more countries which are working towards connecting. So just having an event isn't going to be enough, although I think there's an important role for it there, for us to be able to discuss in situations like this. As I said when I started presenting, part of my role is that liaison, supporting the liaison between Géant and the rest of the world. It's my responsibility to be talking to our friends in North America, Latin America, and Africa, in my particular area of work, where we are talking about what's going on in Europe. And an example of that, it's not just about what we're doing in Europe, but it's also been me finding about what's going on in Latin America, Africa, North America. And an example is, Michael has mentioned MConf. Well, in Géant, we have the SA7 activity for cloud services, which has carried out an activity to identify what are the sort of end-user tools, collaboration tools, services that people really want. And coincidentally, or not coincidentally, I think, it turns out that what people really want is web conferencing, and they want file transfer tools. This is an exercise that was carried out in Latin America 2-3 years ago, and they came up with exactly the same result. There is mConf already available as an RNE provided service. In Europe, we shouldn't be looking at recreating that. It's to make sure that we can start looking into how we use that, how we can work together. Does what they've done in Brazil provide our needs? And it's our role to make sure that we are communicating as human beings about what we're doing, what our common interests are, what our problems are, so that where there are synergies, we can come together. And there was an expression that you used earlier about, squeezing the dollars. And, we live in an environment... Stretching the dollars, sorry. The dollars are squeezed, we need to stretch them. And in an economic environment where we are tight and we are having to justify our place in the world, that is a very good way, I think, that we can move forward.
Yeah, I just think that the global conversation is hugely important, so we all talk the same language. By that I mean the same middleware language, be it SAML, be it Eduroam, which are global things. And the universities and colleges today are reaching out to the world to get the foreign students in to make it more sustainable and so forth. So that's hugely important. But I'd echo what Tusu said here, is that I find these events useful. So you identify with your like-minded type NREN, or those with similar constraints, be it policy, be it geography, political, whatever, and then you can do a lot after these events on a one-to-one or one-to-few. And I think a lot of work comes out of that.
Other questions?
Thank you. I would like to just take us back a bit. I took interest in what Boone said on your media strategy. On the question on how you created the dialogue. So I wanted to find out, on using newspapers, was it just a one-off thing, or did you come up with a comprehensive campaign? I'm asking this because in the context of the developing world, there are so many other issues that are struggling, that are there trying to get to the attention of the government, so many other pertinent needs. And so really investing in technologies may not seem to be one of those important things, for example, as compared to investing in malaria drugs. For the government, it looks like that. So did you have a comprehensive media strategy? And also, how did it look like? How was the cost like for you, and did it pay off? I'm asking this because we have, in the previous meeting, the CPR meeting, we discovered that most of our associations are operating within really tight media budgets. But it's very, very important. This media aspect as well is very much as important in the sustenance and also propagation of what we are there to do. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, okay. I think what she was referring to was the dengue fever workshop. It started last year in Maastricht, where Tom posed, what can we do together about epidemic? And in Singapore, it was hit by the dengue fever. And we took the opportunity that, hey, this is something that the government is focusing on. And we didn't really have any contacts with clinicians and everything. We did a number of things. I went and sit down in a workshop for clinicians and didn't understand what they were talking about, except that I saw a few words on dengue fever and went up to the lady, hey, I'd like to know more about it. And then after a few chats, I understand a little bit more about it. And that's just only one. We use the global PR community to stretch out to other regions, like in Australia. We have someone participating from Australia. It's better that the NRENs from that country calls on the person rather than me from Singapore calling on a person in Australia who doesn't know me. A cold call is going to be very, very cold. And so we made use of a number of tools, friends, our connections, to reach out and organize that. And after that, we said, hey, that's really great. And then we found out the Caribbean was having some dengue and a problem down there. And they said, hey, can we help them in organizing things? And Helga and myself is helping them with that. So now we found that in Africa, it's also hit by dengue fever. Can we replicate something similar? You know, and slowly we try to link the people, the clinicians together. And we provide the IT support, the video conference support and everything. You know, let the clinicians do what they're best at, you know, and we help them in doing it. To how much money did I spend on it? It costs single REN $0. It's my time. You know, we don't. I wish we have a corporate comm person down there, but we don't have. You know, and I think she's right. Maybe we should set aside some money for corporate communication. It's important because even if you do good work, if no one knows about it, it disappears. You know, and NRENs needs to shout. We need to shout a bit louder to let people know about the good things we are doing, and that's very important. And I think the corporate comm. That's why I joined the corporate comm group, global PR group, to understand. And there's so much things to be done there. Sorry, it's taken a long time.
I think you left us with time to think. That's great. I don't know if any of you care to comment any more on that. No. Steve, you had...
I was going to say just a small thing on slightly. You know, one of the things that we do within GI is produce case studies which demonstrate how the network has been used. This is done by my colleague Helgels on the Karen project, the EU MedConnect project, the TAME projects, etc. So the idea is that we use these case studies to demonstrate to our stakeholders, but also to end users, what they can do, how they can use a network to further their research, their collaboration, their cooperation. But one of the issues we really have is, you know, these are very nice documents that we've produced, but then we need to get them out to the end user so they can actually understand what they're doing, and that is a great challenge, and I don't think we've hit on a solution for that at all yet, and that is something that, you know, we need to take forward.
I was about to say that the reason why I asked just now how many of you are network engineers and engineers is because we mustn't forget about the rest of the world. There's a huge world out there. And sometimes they just use, I was talking to a clinician, what do they do to communicate with each other? They use the phone to call each other for a call. You know, and the way they share slides is that they do an email across, and here's the slides, you go to the next slide, you go to the next slide. And that's what they do because they have no support and they do not know about it. We as a network engineers, it's our responsibility to go out, to reach out to them. Maybe we should attend some of the workshops in other areas and get them in. The more people that's into the NREN, the stronger the NREN is.
Point is well met.
Yeah. Sorry, I took your spot.
Hello, I'm Steve Huter, Director of Network Startup Resource Center, and this is a question for Ronan. I'm curious to know how deep do you go in terms of the technical assistance that you provide to the schools? Is it, you know, an endpoint connection, or are you actually assisting them, you know, in the school and campus network, creating, you know, Wi-Fi access mechanisms, et cetera? How deep do you go with the technical support?
We did wish to draw a line at the edge router and walk away, but it doesn't really work like that. So absolutely the pipe goes into the school and so forth, and the school has minimal work to do to receive the connection, and the router is managed and the security is managed, and we do content filtering. But we do get brought into the LAN, which is not really our strength or core expertise. But so we do try and draw a line between that and this. But what we do on the rollout of the 100 megs, for example, is we do have the engineer spend, you know, up to whatever number of hours, 2 to 3 hours on the day to test the connectivity from around the building to make sure there's no throttle point, be it an old switch or whatever. And we do offer, you know, web hosting and so on and so forth. There's a gap there for sure right now, certainly in the Irish environment. And particularly around Wi-Fi, schools are now trying to fundraise the investment to put in the Wi-Fi because they have the big pipe. So we could assist with regard to being a colo for a central controller for Wi-Fi, that type of thing. But we wouldn't see the NREN or HENet moving into the Wi-Fi area just yet unless there was a more deeper dialogue about how we could do that.
Do most of the schools have their, or do some of the schools in Ireland have their own IT, tech help, and you provide support through them, or is it?
That's a bit of a myth. That's a bit of a myth, unfortunately. It's typically somebody who put their hand up. It's typically a maths or a science teacher. I don't know what the correlation is, who put their hand up to volunteer, and that's still the way it is. I think the world has changed, and it's all about funding. But I think a school is often a medium-sized business, so they really need to be able to fund it in a way that ICT is a core enabler for a lot of activities. But that's not there. It is in some schools, absolutely, and they do spend money, be it internally outsourced. But again, it's a work to do in the area, but the broadband is enabling all that and conversations at policy and also school level.
Thanks.
Thanks. Rob Evans again. So teaching is global. We in Janet many of our customers have campuses in countries around the world. Are there common services that the NRENs need to offer that we don't yet, and how do we as a community go about coordinating that?
I've got a small comment, but it's not necessarily, it's something maybe the NRENs can do, and I think in some instances do. We've done a GEL case study, showing some examples of how schools collaborate around the world through having individual interactions between schools to having conferences involving a variety of schools speaking about distinctive and specific political themes. And when we were doing this and we were talking with a number of people, what we realized was that a lot of the time there's a teacher who wants to have her class, his class, collaborate with a school in another part of the world. It might be for language exchange, it might be for cultural exchange, numerous reasons. But actually finding that person in another country is a very, very big challenge. So what we actually did was look and identify a number of platforms that are available out there that do enable people to interact and find each other. But I think that is, that finding your collaboration partner, your cooperation partner is a tough challenge. And making them aware, making the teachers aware of what tools there are in order to be able to help find their partner is again a big issue, a big challenge.
Any one of you care to offer more perspectives on that?
No, I think just to echo the challenge, and there is a policy piece about it too, that particularly around curriculum, but also but self-created content, just giving the teachers and even the pupils an area to put this up, somewhere actually to post it, be it out a school's tube or a college tube or whatever, would help rather than it being scattered all over the place. But yeah, it's a difficult area for sure.
There was one more question there. May probably need to be our last one.
Thank you. I'm Isaac from Uganda. I noticed from Uganda that the community, which is probably one of the strongest, is health sciences. And in that community, there is a lot of global collaboration. How do we spread this to other communities of research and education?
I think I would reverse that question. And one thing we've been trying to do initially is to identify communities of practice as our key stakeholders. And if they go across borders, and I know the medical community in Uganda actually goes across borders, we can share with you the linkages. They are being encouraged to become associate members of the alliance. So that then working with the NRENs, we can enable them to collaborate across borders through virtual networks and everything. In addition to the health you have talked about, another very strong one are the librarians, and then there's the agriculture people, and those are very, very strong communities. So those become a key point of focus for you. And I think, as has been said, we need, when we gather NREN meetings, to focus more on those than on the engineers. And that's why in the UbuntuNet Connect conferences, which we organize every year now, next one is going to be in Lusaka, short commercial, Lusaka, Zambia in November, we ensure that a major part of the content is actually research. It's research from the universities, and then some presentations on the infrastructure, and then you create a space in which the two communities can meet on a regular basis. And it's amazing how they take up to each other and start exchanging notes and questions. How can we do this and so on? So yes, we can talk more about that later on. I think our role at this moment in time should be more about using those communities as examples to others, because stimulating communities of practice is rather difficult and it's not quite our role, really. There are groups which are interested in doing a lot of things. We just want to enable them as an example.
Any final additional comments, perspectives?
To come to that question, you know, within Europe, bioinformatics is obviously a very, very important area requiring research. But one of the challenges I think that we face is that most of what goes across our networks, we don't actually know what it is. And so we don't know what support is actually required, and identifying that is very hard. I don't have a solution, but it is I think it is an issue. And you know, when we're talking with our global colleagues, you know, we see traffic going across. A lot of it, you know, some of the really big users we will know about, but the smaller users we don't, and they may well have needs that we aren't providing for at the moment.
I mean, I look at APAN itself in the last APAN meeting in Bandung. I think, my colleague, correct me, we had some things about environment, and we bring another group of people into the community and work that out, and show them, you know, other communities that are there, and say, hey, we learn from each other. Sometimes they talking to each other is better than us telling them. And the other thing is, you really need to have a champion down there. From the community who's willing to step forward and says, yes, that's what it is. And Shimizu, in the telesurgery, he stepped forward and says, yes, that's what it is. I'm going to push it. And he has all the contacts around the world, you know, better than us. And he calls them hot rather than cold call from us. And that makes a lot of difference.
Okay, well, I think everybody must be hungry at this point. But before we close, please make sure you fill out the evaluation form for the session. I think we're getting some great feedback already, so please make sure you do that. One quick announcement, if you have not voted for your student poster, please make sure you do that today. In fact, maybe you could do it before you go to eat. I know the TREN staff would appreciate that. And then hopefully we'll see you at the gallery.